Okay, so Bava Batra Kavbet Amud Aleph. The story this week is humorous, actually.
Okay.
It's a story about an interaction between someone named Ravdimi Minahardia, who is not the famous Ravdimi who was always coming from Eretz Yisrael to Bava. He's a different Ravdimi. He's a bit less well known. But this is a story about his interaction with Rava and one of his students. And then something tragic happens, and a whole bunch of rabbis try to take responsibility for the tragedy, saying it was their fault. And toch kedei, we will discuss we'll kind of go on a tangent to discuss a halachic sugya about something having to do with Tumah, because it's relevant to the story. We'll see that sugya in a different place in Shas. And then we'll look at some Rishonim who try to understand a potential contradiction between the stories, and then at the end, try to offer a chidush of our own on how to understand Tosfot and the Ritva. So, let us begin. So, the Gemara in Bava Batra and Dav Chav Bet Amud Aleph says as follows: Rav Dimi min Naharda aite grogrot besfina. Okay, so Rav Dimi from Naharda, he came with some dried figs in a boat. It was his job; he was coming to sell these figs. Amar le Reish Galut el Rava, pok chazi itzur b'merabanan hu nakid le shuka. So the Reish Galuta said to Rava, go see if this person, Rav Dimi min Hardia, is a tzur b'merabanan, right? If he's a scholar, and if he is, nakid le shuka, which means we'll save the market for him. We won't let anyone else sell dried figs, so that he's able to sell his wares and make a profit from it. So apparently that was practice in those days, that if you're a Talmid Chacham, you come and you want to kind of sell your wares, so they help you out so that you can make a profit easily.
I think these are very popular food at the time. So that's what it's all. Every story is about dried these cake of figs.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It comes up. You're right. So Amalei Rava le Rav Ada bar Abba pok tehele bekankanei. So Rava sent Rav Ada bar Abba, who was his student, so go smell his bottle, which basically means go see what's going on. Go find out what his story is. Test him out. Nafak Azil Ba'amine. So he went and he found Rav Dimi min Hardeh, and he asked him the following question: Pil shebalak fifa mitzrit v'hikiya derech beit harei mahu. Okay, so you have an elephant. The elephant swallows a wicker basket, okay, made of reeds, and then the elephant excretes the basket whole. Mahu. What's the halacha? So the question is, if
what?
he poos out this basket, okay?
What basket?
An elephant ate a basket. The basket was made from something that was tameh. That's the assumption here. Okay, this wicker basket had contracted tumah. The elephant eats it. It goes through the elephant's digestive tract.
To play.
To put stuff in a basket.
Oh, that, yeah.
Yeah, sal.
Without the
Okay,
song.
so he eats it. It goes through his digestive tract, and then he excretes the basket whole. Okay. So what's the mahu? What's the question? Does the basket still retain its tumah because it's intact, or is the fact that it went through the elephant now it's considered a new bria and it's lost its tumah? Okay, that's the question, right? Lo hava bidei. Rav Dimi min Hardia did not know the answer. Okay, so Amar le Marnihu Rava. So Rav Dimi asked Rav Ada bar Abba, is the master Rava? In other words, from such a obscure, complicated question, are you Rava who's come to ask me this type of question? Tfachle besandale. So Rav Ada bar Abba smacks him with his sandal. Amar le bein didi le Rava ikatuva. Rav Ada bar Abba says, between me and Rava, there's a great distance, right? I'm just his humble student. Miu al korch.
Do these stuff. Pull
Hold on.
sand on someone's faces.
The Gemara is full of other things too.
Yeah. Mihu al korchach ana rabach v'rava rabba de rabach. So he says, between me and Rava, there's a great distance, but apparently, I am your rabbi and Rava is your rabbi's rabbi. In other words, the fact that you had no idea how to answer this question about the elephant means that you're not a tzur b'merabanan, and I am greater than you, and Rava kal v'chomer is greater than you. Okay? La nikitu le shuka. So he decided not to reserve the market, not to close it down. So Rav Dimi min Hardia, his figs, he wasn't able to sell them, and he lost before they dried out, or they became impossible to sell. So Atal Kami Rav Yosef. So Rav Dimi went to Rav Yosef. So he says, you see what they did to me? They did this whole thing. They asked me this question, and then they wouldn't let me sell the figs, and I lost my produce. So Amar le Rav Yosef said to him, Man de la shahaya leonita de malka de Edom, la nishaya leonitach. Tichtiv kol mar Hashem v'shlosha pishei Moav al Baal shivenu al sofo asmot melech Edom lasid. So Rav Yosef basically says, may the master who did not let the offense against the king of Edom go without avenging it, also not let you get offended without avenging it. And he quotes a pasuk about Melech Edom, whose bones were burned and turned into lime. Basically, Rav Yosef saying to Rav Dimi, may Hashem avenge your honor for this episode. So what happens? Nach nafshe de Ravada Barava. Okay, so then the one who tested him and smacked him died. So now everyone wants to know whose fault was it that he died. Okay, so Rav Yosef Amar Ana nichte de Ana Latye.
His
So Rav
fault
Yosef
I
says,
smacked the Rav's face with his sandal.
yes. So he did that, but then he died. The one who smacked his face. So the question is, what whose fault is it that he died?
Smacked?
The guy who smacked, the rabbi who smacked. Okay, he dies.
Yeah, his fault. His own fault.
Right. So he did something that was perhaps inappropriate. We'll see that in the Rishonim. But still, there's a diyun on the fact that he died. Was there someone else who had some responsibility in it? But yes, you are correct.
So what is Rav Yosef telling him? That it's his
Rav
fault?
Yosef says, "Ana nishte." It's my fault that he died.
No, wait, before.
The ana latiyeh. Because Rav Yosef said to Rav Dimi, "May the one who knows May Hakadosh Baruch Hu avenge your honor." So he cursed Rav Ada Baraba. In other words, because Rav Ada Baraba was the one who offended him.
What time
So
did
the
he-
fact that Rav
when
Ada
did
Baraba
he-
died, Rav said it's my fault because I invoked this curse on Rav Ada Baraba. Okay.
It's interesting. Rav Yosef's reaction fits with his response. With his the other guys were very seemingly haughty about themselves and reserve this behavior of preserving only if they're one of us, whatever.
Uh-huh.
Yosef was like, no, it's a Jew. You should have They wronged him,
Right.
and it goes together with his response. Like, I'm at fault. Like, a humble guy.
Yeah.
He's saying it's his fault. He's saying, Ana anishte, I punished him.
Yeah.
He's taking credit.
Yeah, it's his fault.
Rashi said it means I'm the one who caused him to die.
Is he saying it in a positive way or a negative way?
Oh, good. So Tosfot understands it as a negative, but you could read it also in the other way. Yeah, that's fair. But I think Tosfot understands it to mean they are saying, it's woe is me that I caused his death. But you're right. You could read it also in a positive way if he deserved it. Right? Going back to what you said of Moshe, it's interesting because if I remember correctly, and I probably don't, but there's a famous Gemara at the end of Sota. We've referenced it before, where it says when I forget who it is died, Anava left the world.
Rava, no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I forget who it was. When a certain rabbi died, humility left the world. And then Rav Yosef says, "What are you talking about? I'm still alive." Right? Which is the best.
Fits with this.
No, he's saying, but
I know, but
meaning
It's like Moshe writing in the
if someone's a
Torah.
real Arab, they can say that.
if someone's real enough, they can say, there's still humility because I'm around. Okay.
Not really. It's like Moshe writing,
It's
it
not,
was the
it's
greatest.
not a needless to not recognize that you're an Arab.
And if you're not one, yeah.
To recognize you're an Arab and be an Arab.
All right. Anyway, it's an interesting point about Rav Yosef. Okay, let's keep going. Rav Dimi min Har de Amar, Ana nishtei de afsid gurgo didi. So this one I don't quite understand. Rav Dimi says it's my fault because I lost the produce.
And he was upset because of that.
Yeah. So no, it's because I got upset and I let this bother me. It led to this chain of events that led to his death. So it's my fault. So I said this is a funny story. I found this to be the funniest part, even though I don't think it's meant to be funny. Abaye Amar Ana nishtei. The Amar le Rabbanan, Adim garmitu garme be Abaye, tu ichlu bisra shamena be Rava.
I did not
So-
understand the word.
Yeah. So Abaye says, I'm the one who punished him, because Rav Ada bar Abba, he used to say to the rabbis, instead of going and eating the dry bones at Abaye's house, go eat the fat meats at Rava's house. In other words, he used to look down on Abaye's Torah and used to say Rava's Torah was great. The reason I think that's funny is because Abaye is not part of the story. In other words, there's this story that happens, and then at least Rav Dimi or Rav Yosef were part of the story. Abaye comes out of left field and says, "No, I'm the one who killed him because he used to insult insult my Torah. Okay, anyway. ורבא אמר, אנא נשתה דחייה ויעזר לבית טבחה למשקה אומצה, אמר לי לטבחה.
No, but that's it's saying something. It's saying it's not your like. There's no reason. It's the menutak legami from the story. He's saying, oh, it's because of different cheshbonos.
Right, it had nothing to do with this episode.
Story.
Right. Yeah.
It's funny. I guess it's funny, but
Yeah.
he's saying you're. It could be me because I once did.
Right. In other words, it tells this story,
Yeah.
and then he dies perhaps soon after the story, and then there's a diyun about why he died, and some rabbis say it's because of the thing that happened right before he died, and the rabbi says, no, it's unrelated to what just happened and what we just talked about. Yeah. Fair enough. ורבא אמר אנא נשתה דחייה ויעזר לבית טבחה למשקל אומצה אמר לטבחי אנא שקירנה ביסרא מקמא שמאי דרבא ואנא עדיפנה מיני. Okay, Rava gives this whole thing about how he used to send his servant to the marketplace to buy meat, and Bava Batra used to say, "Give me meat before the servant, because I'm more important than the servant." Okay, and the Mefarshim talk about what that means.
From?
What?
Also, Abai and also Rava are talking about meat. Where did this come from?
Well, when Abai says it was this analogy that Bava Batra used to describe how Rava's Torah was like good meat, and Abai's Torah was like the bones. It's not actual meat. Rava's talking about a case of actually going to the market and buying meat. Why are they obsessed with meat is a great question. I don't have an answer. But let's also now, just to finish off the Gemara, so Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar, Ana nishtei. It's my fault. Why? He brings a totally different story now, okay? So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Reish Kala Hava. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak was in charge of the Kala, right? The Kala was twice a year in Adar and Elul. They used to have this huge kind of gathering where they learned Torah together. So he was in charge of it. Kol yom kame neu lechala marhid bihadei Ravada Barava lishmate v'hadar ay lechala. So every day he used to practice his shiur in front of Ravada Baraba, and he would review it with him. And then after he reviewed it with him, he would go actually give the shiur to the broader, the rabbis who were there. Ahu yoma, one day naktur of Papa Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua Ravada Baraba mishum delo havo b'siyuma. So one day, Rav Papa and Rav Huna Bar Yeshua, they grabbed Ravada Baraba when he was on his way to Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak to help Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak prepare his shiur and review it. And they grabbed him because they had missed the end of shiur the previous day. Amrulei, Emalan hanishmatata damaser behema hachi amrinhu Rava. So they said, can you tell us what we missed yesterday? What were the things that Rava had taught about Maser behema, right? The halachot of Maser behema. So Amar le'achi amar Rava, v'achi amar Rava. So Ravada Bava said, yeah, this is what Rava taught, and this is what Rava taught. He explained to them the shiur from the previous day. But while this is happening, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak is waiting for Ravada Bava in order to review the shiur for Kala. So Adahachi negale Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. So while this is all happening, so Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak is sitting and waiting for him. But Loati Ravada Bava, and he didn't come to review with him. So Amru le Rabbanan Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Kum dinagalan ma yativ mar. So the rabbi said to Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, get up and teach the shiur. What are you waiting around for? So Amru le yativna v'ka minatra la'arsid of Ada bar Abba. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said, I'm sitting and waiting for the beer of Ravada bar Abba. In other words, he was saying, the fact that Ravada bar Abba didn't come to prepare the shiur with me, it must be that he died, because how could he possibly not come to review the shiur with me? He knows how important it is. 1 second. And then, in fact, that's when word got out that Ravada Baraba had died. And then the Gemara, kind of interestingly, actually weighs in and gives the psak. So the Gemara says this last story is actually the real answer. That Rav Nachman Yitzchak, by saying, it must be that I'm waiting for the coffin, that was what caused Ravada Baraba to die, and not the case from before about the elephant. What was your question?
The elephant.
You found it, right? You found it.
Where was it?
It's on this page. You're right.
What?
Okay, so the first question that we want to ask is why are they testing Rav Dimi like this? What kind of thing is this? You come test his Torah to see if you should reserve the market for him. So the Makor are a bit out of order. If you look on the second page in the picture at the Iyun Yaakov, he addresses it quickly. So he says Tihi le akan kaneh, right? So go smell his bottle, right? So the Iyun Yaakov there on the right side. The fisha bnei neharda einam bnei Torah kedita be'avodat elilim daf nunvav ayin sham. he basically says there's a Gemara elsewhere in Masechet Avodah Zarah that says that people from Nehardea they're not Torah scholars. They don't know. So Rav Dimi was from Nehardea, so they heard that he was coming from Nehardea. They said, "Oh, Nehardea is a place where everybody there is they're the Burva Ma'aretz, so we have to test him." Okay, in other words, it wasn't like a practice that they did all the time. It was just because he was coming from Nehardea. Okay, so that's what the Yaakov wants to argue. Another just kind of particular point I wanted to discuss quickly before getting into the kind of the main analysis. This idea of tafach le besandale. We'll see the Rishonim ask about it after. What is that behavior? So the Rishonim will argue that it was actually disrespectful. It was kind of out of line that he did that. Another example where that phrase came up, I just saw just kind of as parenthetically in Moed Katan on Daf Kaf Hey Amud Aleph. It says a particular rabbi died, Rav Huna, I believe, and they're eulogizing him. So P'tachale Rabbi Abba. Everyone's sitting around for the funeral. I guess they're eulogizing him. So Rabbi Abba opens to kind of praise Rav Huna. Ra'ui haya Rabbeinu shetishrei alav shechina, ela shebavel garmalo. So Rav Huna would have been zocheh for nevuah, except he lived in Bavel, right? And there's no nevuah outside of Eretz Yisrael. Otherwise, he would have gotten nevuah. So Mati Rav Nachman bar Chizda ve'amri le Rav Chanan bar Chizda hayo haya dvar Hashem el Yechezkel ben Buzi HaKohen be'Eretz Kasdim. So Rabbi's there. He says, but wait, we have an example where Yechezkel gets a nevuah when he's in Bavel. So what are you telling me that if a rabbi lives in Bavel, he can't get nevuah? So Tafach le avui besandale. So his father smacks him with the sandal. And V'amar le lava menalach lati torod alma mai haya she'haya kvar. So it says hayo haya. So when the pasuk says hayo haya, it means that he had a nevuah back in Eretz Yisrael, and now we're telling it over when he's in Bavel. But the nevuah happened in Eretz Yisrael. But why is his father smacking him with the sandal? Because you don't. You're sitting at a eulogy of the Gadol Hador, and then someone opens his mouth and gives the first vort. You don't come and say that vort doesn't make any sense, right? You're not supposed to do that. So anyway, but you could argue a father in this case it makes sense. No, first of all, it's his father. The father smacking the son and with the sandal. Okay, Meila, right? At least that's
Totally
okay.
fine.
But you're meeting some other potential tzur b'merabanan who doesn't know an obscure halachic shaila and smack him with the sandal. You could say that that's not the same thing. Okay. All right. To understand where the Rishonim get all mixed up with this, we have to actually learn this sugya about the elephant that excretes a wicker basket, okay? It actually comes up in Menachot and Daf Samech Tet Amud Aleph, and the conclusion of that sugya, you'll see why it's confusing based on the interaction that we saw in our Gemara. So the Gemara Menachot says as follows, Bai Rami Bar Chama, Pil Shebala Kfifa Mitzrit V'kiyad Derech Betera Mau. It's the exact same question, okay? Rami Bar Chama raises the question.
Is this a different sort of excretion? Isn't it key to throw up, or is that in the modern Hebrew?
No, same word.
It means either direction. Yeah. Okay. The Betara is from the back. So now we're in a different place. Okay, we're in a Menachot. It's a different Gemara. Okay. So the Gemara asks Lemai. So the Gemara says, what does this question mean? So if you're asking, which is what I said earlier, right? That the question is the impurity nullified because it went through, the elephant? So Tanena, we have a Mishnah that says, Kol hakelin yodin lidei tumatan b'machshava, ve'en olin mituvatan ele b'shinui maseh. This is a Mishnah in Masechet Olot that it says in order for something to get tumah, it needs to be through machshava. Okay, we're not going to talk. I don't want to get into what that means right now. But what's more important is ve'en olin mituvatan ele b'shinui maseh. That if something is tameh, it can't lose its tumah except through a shinui ma'aseh, which means that it has to physically change in some way. Okay, so if you have a utensil that's tameh and a piece of it breaks off, so then maybe it loses its tumah. So from the fact that this basket is completely intact, so who cares if it goes through an elephant, right? The Mishnah says, unless it's a shinui ma'aseh, it's the exact same kli, it's totally 100% unchanged, so why would you ever think that it would lose its tumah? So the Gemara says, so that must not have been the question. Lo tzricha Divla hutzin ve'avdin hu kfifa mitzrit. The elephant swallowed the leaves. Okay, that the leaves were tameh. The elephant swallowed all the leaves. The leaves came out intact, and then someone took those leaves from the excrement and turned them into a basket. So is that basket now tameh? What? Okay. So what's the question? Mi have ikul. So do you say? The question is there digestion here? Okay. Do you say that it's been digested Havale kiklei glalim, and then you attribute these leaves to be like dung, essentially, kiklei adama, or like earth, and any utensil that you make from mud or from dung, and mekablin tuma. So, okay, I took these leaves, they're like dung from the elephant, halachically. I make a utensil from them. That utensil is not mekabel tuma, because it's made from the earth, which is made from the dung. Damar klei avanim, klei glalim, klei adama, en mekablin tuma. Lo midivrei Torah, v'lo midivrei sofrim. There's no inyan of tuma when it comes to making something from stone or from dung. Or do I say that there's no digestion because I see from the leaves came out totally intact, so I say that they haven't been digested, they're still leaves, and therefore when I make them into a wicker basket, they are tameh. So that's the question that the Gemara asks, okay? So the Gemara tries to answer by saying, Tifshut le mehada amar ula mishum Rabbi Shimon bar Tzadak. Learn the din here from a different case. Maaseh uval'u ze'evim shnei tinokot be'ever hayardin. One time, wolves ate two babies on the other side of the Yarden, and they excreted their corpses. Okay. Uvama aseh lifnei chachamim, and the chachamim then were asked to declare whether the corpses of these babies were tameh or tahor. V'tiaru et basar, and they said the flesh of these corpses was tahor. So, well, that you can touch it, and it's not tameh.
Why?
Why would you touch it?
No, why wouldn't it be tummy? Isn't any dead person?
You think it's no longer the same?
It's not intact. It's not like the elephant where it comes out unchanged. It was the flesh, but it was not the body of the baby anymore. What?
Doesn't really matter. Even the bones are.
Oh, good. We're about to get the bones. We're about to get to the bones.
At some
Good.
point, not. Meaning, when a body, if you bury someone,
It doesn't happen
the body
here.
is just dust. You dig, the dust is not
talking
tummy.
from
Right?
Bava.
At some point, the body is no longer tummy.
I don't know if dust is, but rot is considered.
But eventually, it just goes back to earth, like
Which bank?
Yeah, I don't know.
like when you dig, dirt is not tummy, even if there's
But clearly something came out.
No, they knew it was the flesh of the baby, I guess, because they knew that the baby was consumed, but it was no longer in its. There was a shinui masa. That's the important point, right? That the reason why we're trying to use this as a proof is that the form had changed somehow. So Chazal, they said it was tahor, the flesh. So what is that? So what can I try to use that to teach? That also with the leaves, the fact that the Chachamim in that case said that it was pure. So that teaches me that have equal, right? That there is digestion. That if something goes through the tract of an animal and comes out the other side, it loses its tuma, and then I can use it, okay? Or it's considered tahor. Then the Gemara rejects that. It says, Shani basar de rakich. No, the flesh of a baby is soft, so it's easily digestible. But perhaps the leaves, that in the case of the elephant with the wicker basket, the leaves are rougher, so I wouldn't be able to say that have equal. So the Gemara then tries to say the opposite. But Lif Shot Miseifa, the end of that story with the wolves says that they declared the bones tameh. In other words, there were bones and then there was, digested flesh. So they said the digested flesh is tahor, but the bones are tameh. Why are the bones tameh? Because they're still intact. So just as the bones were intact, the leaves are intact. So shouldn't I now say that it's tameh, just like the bones were still tameh? The Gemara says, Shani atzamot de'akosh etzvei. No, bones are harder than so basically the flesh is softer and the flesh was tahor. The bones are harder and the bones are tameh. I have these leaves in between those, so the Gemara doesn't know what to say. In other words, it leaves it as a teku. It doesn't conclude one way or the other way. So why is this? Why would the Rishonim who learn this sugya, what question will they have on our story with Rav Dimi and Bava Batra?
No answer.
Right. He comes and he says, right, Pil shebalak fifa mitzuyit v'ikia derech beit ha'imau. He comes and says, go find out if this guy is a Talmud Chacham. He doesn't know the answer. He comes, he slaps him, and he says, obviously you're gornished, and he doesn't reserve the market for him. But the Gemara itself in a different place doesn't know the answer to the question. So what are you expecting from Rav Dimi? Right? So that's the question. So Tosfot raises this question. He says,
It's machloket.
what?
They wanted to say the generic answer. It's a machloket.
He wasn't
So,
in the time of the Gemara. I didn't know that yet.
but you're mechaven actually,
You should have
okay?
answered something.
Okay, right. Okay, good. So what does Tosfot say? Had the ba mine Ravada Baraba mirav dimi min hardia beper shel achpor pir shel balak fa mitzvit v'ikad derech beter imau lav. We're in Tosfot. Tosfot is the commentary on the side here. Okay.
On the outside.
Menachos.
Or the inside, I cannot remember.
Oh, it's in Menachot. It's on a different
Wo
place.
ist Meneiches?
It's a different Gemara.
Wo ist Meneiches?
Okay, it's a different Gemara. Okay, you can go look for it. It's on the shelf. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Where was I? Okay, so Mao lav b'kfifa mamash ba minei edim ken amay lo havi biyadei matnitin. In other words, it's not really asking about the wicker basket itself, and that the wicker basket came out on its own, because then you have the Mishnah, right? As we saw in Menachot. De'eno limitu matanel b'shinui maseh ela be'utzin. It's talking about the leaves. V'avad lu kfifa, and then you come and make a basket from the leaves. Ba minei ve'ha detafach le hatam b'sandale. So how could Ravada bar Abba have hit him with the sandal? Afal gav dehi nami kaima beteku. Even though the Gemara Menachot isn't able to answer the question. Mikol makom have leile medak alei kededai ke hacha me'ahidula. In other words, Ravada bar Abba was trying to see if Rav Dimi would have asked the question like Ula did from the case of the wolves. Okay? In other words, the fact that he didn't have anything to say was the problem. He should have, even though he didn't necessarily know how to get to the final answer, he should have had some kind of pilpul. Okay? If you look at the Ritva in the picture on the bottom, he says something slightly different. Tafach le besandale v'lo nakat le shuka v'hikshu b'tosfot lama zilzilu mipnei shelo yada davar zeh zehaki agavnei ba'elam b'mesachem menachot deloiv shita atam, right? There's no answer in menachot. Tibai pil shebelahutz in vikan derech betari v'asa mehem kelim ma'av b'glalim lo kavatuma olo v'yesh tirtzu v'chulei. And he says that there are some who answer in a particular way. Ve'anachon kmo shetir etzri. So the Ritva says the best answer is this one. Zal telehachi lo lalei mishum degabe baya dehatam itrimu kama matnita v'chama memra v'lo ati leichai deminayu. In other words, over there they have a back and forth. They quote the Mishnah. They quote the story of Ula. They have a pilpul. And Rav Dimi didn't have any of that, right?
He had one answer. Yeah.
He should have had something to say about the sugya. Okay, that's what the Ritva says. So I want to argue actually. I wanted to actually argue, and then we'll finish off just with kind of like a final halachic point. If you remember last week, for the people who were here, which most of you weren't here, but last week we saw that Rav Dimi from Nehardya and Rava have a machloket about if you have two teachers, one of them knows a lot but isn't necessarily so precise, and the other one is very precise and medakdek but doesn't know a lot, which type of teacher is preferable for students in a school? It's like a question on education. And Rava and Rav Dimi have a machloket about it. Okay, Rava says it's better to be garis v'lo dayek, right? I'd prefer a teacher who knows a lot, can teach the children a lot, even if he's not so precise, because Rava held shabeshta mimela nafka, that if an error is mistakenly, a child makes an error and the teacher is not medayek about it, when he's older he'll outgrow the error, but he'll still retain the breadth of knowledge. So that's better. Rav Dimi Minardis says the opposite. Rav Dimi Minardis says shabesh takevan da al, right? That once a child learns a mistake, it stays with them, right? And so it's more important to have a teacher who's very medakdek, even if he doesn't necessarily teach as much information, but teaches the children like correct precision. Okay, so that's a machloket from a daf ago between Rav Dimi and Rava. So I want to argue based on that perhaps that is also informing the sugi here. How come? Because what is Rav Ada bar Abba doing when he says Pil Shebalak Fifa Mitzrit Mahu? What is he trying to ascertain from Rav Dimi? So there's a story in the end of Bava Batra about we learned this also last year about Rava bar Avua, I think, where Eliyahu asks him a question. He meets Eliyahu in a graveyard, and he says to Eliyahu, "What are you doing here? Aren't you a Kohen?" And Eliyahu says, "Haven't you learned Hilchot Tumah that there's no problem of Tumah in a graveyard of Nochrim, of non-Jews, right? There's no inyan of Ohel when it comes to non-Jews." And Rava bar Avua answers him and says, "I barely know 4 Masechtot of Shas. You expect me to know all 6 Masechtot of Shas?" And Rashi says there that the 2 that he was saying, how could I possibly know them? One of them is Taharot. That Taharot is known as this very difficult, obscure area of halacha that has very little practical application today. And it was like something that people don't necessarily know, is the Hilchot Tahara. And this case of an elephant is like the obscure of the obscure, right? So perhaps what we can argue is that What Rav Ada bar Abba was trying to ascertain was, is Rav Dimi garis? Does he know a lot? By asking him this edge case of an area of halacha that's not well known, he's trying to understand, is he someone who's holding in Bikiyut of all of Shas? And Rav Dimi didn't know that. And the reason Rav Dimi gets upset is because Rav Dimi says, how should you ascertain if someone's a tzur b'merbanan? It's not about the garis. It's like what he himself holds in the previous daf. What's more important is dayik. So don't ask me some obscure question about an elephant. Ask me about a question that is halacha lemaisa and see my analytical skills. Understand if I know how to think about something. But you're asking me about like a question that was never even resolved. In other words, there's no like good like chap about the question. You just want to know if I know something obscure. So it could be that Rav Ada bar Abba, who is the student of Rava, is holding like his rabbi, who says garis is more important, and Rav Dimi gets upset because he holds that daik is more important. So I wanted to kind of connect that from the argument they have in the previous daf.
It cost him his life.
And it cost him his life, exactly. We argued last week, by the way, that perhaps Rav Dimi that is correct because Rava doesn't respond to Rav Dimi, and there's another place where Rava seems to hold like Rav Dimi. So we argued perhaps Rava was chazar bo, and maybe it was because of this story. Actually, who knows? Okay, I just want to conclude just to kind of we talked a bit about like, does the meat is it dissolved, not dissolved? Is it like how long before it turns to dust? So this comes up in in some other places. If you look in this Mishnah in Olot, it says as follows: Kelev she'achal basar met umet kelev. So the case is slightly different, but it's talking about a dog that eats, dead body, and then the dog dies, and the flesh is inside the dog still. It's not that it's excreted it, but that the dog's corpse, you find the flesh still undigested inside the dog. So how long does it have to sit there before you say that it's not tameh anymore? In other words, if a dog eats a piece of flesh and then a month goes by and the dog dies, so that's enough time for it to have been digested. So how long do we say it takes for the flesh to be digested to no longer be tameh?
27 days.
So close. So the Mishnah says Shloshah yamim me'ed le'ed, 3 days. Okay.
How is that close?
It's not. I was joking. Be'ofod u'v'dagim kedei shetipol ha'ur v'tisarech t'rei b'shimon Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera omer be'ofod u'v'dagim me'et le'et. So basically it's a machloket, but by other animals like be'ofod u'v'dagim, like a 24-hour period. Okay, so they digest more quickly. But a dog, it takes 3 days. Why does it take a dog 3 days and other animals just a day? So there's a nice idea on this at the end of Masechet Shabbat. Darash Rabbi Yonah apitcha debei nesiyah. Ma'ay dichtiv yodei tzadik din dalim. A tzaddik knows the judgment for the poor. So here he says tzaddik is actually HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yodei HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'kelev shemizonotav muatin. God knew that it would be hard for a dog to find food. So he created the dog in a way that it took a long time for it to digest its meal so that it would be able to survive a long period of time from meal to meal. So that's an example of Yodei Tzadik Din Dalim, and that's how we know that that's why the dog's digestion takes longer. Okay? So there's kind of a nice idea there to teach me the mercy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And just to conclude, the Rambam combines that in his... I'll just say... So what's the psak of the peel that ate the wicker basket? We said the Gemara leaves it beteku. So what's the answer? So the problem is, right, that we have a psak, like in the Shulchan Aruch or in the Tur, for halacha lamasa, right? The Tur is not posek on Hilchos Tumah V'Tara. Right? The Shulchan Aruch doesn't have a section for Hilchos Tumah V'Tara. The Rambam in the Mishnah Torah, he also codifies all the halachot that are even theoretically possible. So the Rambam, he has an halachot of tumat hamet. So he says as follows: V'chama tishhei atuma b'me'en v'tiyeh mitam'a k'she'amutu. So he's asking about if an animal dies and you find a dead corpse inside the animal, how long does it take for it to not be considered tameh anymore? B'kelev shloshah yamim, good, me'ed le'et, v'shar chaya be'emav v'v'tagim, yom echad me'ed le'et. So he quotes the Mishnah Olot, and the Gemara in Shabbat, and he paskins. And then the Rambam draws a connection between that and our sugya. He says, Bameh dvarim amurim. When is that the case? K'shenishar b'sar hamet b'toch mehen. So that's when you find the animal dies and you find the flesh still inside the animal. Aval ze'ev shebalat tinok v'kiyo derech beit ha're'iyah b'sar tahor v'atzamot b'tumatan. But even if it happens immediately, in other words, the wolf eats the baby and then 15 minutes later, the wolf excretes the bait, and you know that then it's tahor because it went through the wolf all the way and it comes out. That's considered shinui masa, even if it would normally take an entire day if you found it still inside the wolf. And that's how the Rambam paskins. But I wasn't able to find him actually paskin on the elephant with the wicker basket. This is the closest I was able to find. So I still don't know what the answer is. It's still a take as far as I know, but it could be that the Rambam or someone else answers it in a different place and gives a psak on that. Yeah, that's
Shkoyach.
Shkoyach.
Yeah.